It's a pleasure and a privilege being here, so thank you very much for having me. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about our work at EDF, at the Oceans Technology Solutions team, what we're trying to achieve, and why. And so I'll start by saying that fisheries globally are facing a lot of different challenges, and they're different in different fisheries all over the world. And these challenges range, they range the whole gamut. And so uh, the point that I'm trying to make is that climate change is exacerbating, it's making all of these challenges more difficult to solve. And so the focal point of our work at EDF is to improve the climate resilience of fishers, their communities, and the ecosystems that they depend on. So climate resilience, which briefly is really just the ability of fishers to withstand climate-driven shocks to their livelihoods. There's many broad strokes for improving climate resilience. The first is increasing the timeliness of data use and responding to changing conditions. Adaptive management is really important. The second broad stroke is changing the incentives facing fishers and communities away from short-term goals and towards long-term sustainability, recognizing that many different people are going to have to work together to improve fisheries, and that many fishery issues are increasingly becoming transboundary. Better coordination between all parties is essential. And then finally, helping to reduce reliance on fisheries and to do more with less during a period of rebuilding that many fisheries will have to go through. And the point is that technologies have a huge amount of potential to help us do these things in a wide variety of ways. And the common currency of all these ways that technology can help is information, it's data. Information is the lifeblood of adaptive fisheries management, and tech can help to increase both the supply of information and the demand for information. Technologies can also supercharge efforts to support market access, legitimize disenfranchised stakeholders, create business efficiencies that improve technology users' bottom lines. But the point is that successful examples of technology use in fisheries at scale are few and far between. So why? What are the main barriers to this? Why are successful examples so few and far between? Well, there's many broad barriers, and I'll list a few here today. The first is that the high upfront costs of technologies, a mismatch between who pays for the technologies, often the fishers, and who benefits, often scientists and policymakers, as well as management requirements that ignore fishers' business practices, result in a lack of direct value to the technology users, stifling uptake. Second one is that stable regulatory frameworks that include strong mandates to collect certain types of information are necessary to encourage technology adoption, but they're rare. Many policies today act as barriers to technology uptake through restrictions on data protocols, data access and sharing, as well as cost sharing. A lack of shared understanding of what technological solutions are suitable for specific situations, which solutions are being piloted successfully and which are being piloted unsuccessfully, and inadequate sharing and cross-pollination of ideas between technology implementers results in frequent repetition of pilots in different fisheries and geographies, failure to effectively implement existing solutions, and efficient use of resources and donor funds, and ultimately a failure to scale. So what are we doing about these barriers? Well, the first thing is that we're focusing on tech that works towards increasing the resilience of small-scale fisheries, especially in the developing tropics. And we're doing this by creating proof points that tech can bring value to users. We are building capacity and fluency around technology solutions, better connecting practitioners with technology providers, and catalyzing the development of effective technological solutions to widespread fishery challenges. We're doing this by generating implementation guides, white papers, and also through our engagement with a key fisheries technology conference. A really important lever is the policies that governments can establish to encourage technology adoption. I listed policies as a barrier because they're not being well designed, but with good policy design, it can be probably the most important lever to encourage technology uptake. So we're working around the world in our key geographies to support the development of these policies. And so I'll now get on to our work, and I'll focus on our On the Water pilot projects. But first, I wanted to talk first about the Seafood and Fisheries Emerging Technologies Conference. We're working with this conference platform to create a space, a global space for fishery technologists and implementers to connect and share information. Here's the website. Please visit it. We're going to be holding a global conference later on this year. And the proceedings from this conference, Marea Digital, will be hosted on this website. And secondly, I just wanted to say that EDF are here to help and serve as a resource. We publish guides and white papers that we hope are useful, but if there's any way we can help, please do reach out. So much of our work is in creating proof points that technology can bring value to those that use it. And a major focus of this work is around electronic reporting. We need to get away from paper and pencil and directly onto digital platforms. We need to get away from paper silos, right? Because otherwise this can happen, where data are collected and then they just disappear into a drawer, or in this case, a big room. But we're lucky because smartphones are ubiquitous. Most of the world uses the internet. And there are at least a few billion smartphone users. And the cloud is key here. The cloud basically gives the power of, the cloud provides all of mankind's accumulated knowledge and all the knowledge going forward through our artificial intelligence to anybody with access to the internet. And that's incredibly powerful. And so the opportunity through smartphones is really, really incredible. Electronic reporting, collecting data from the point of capture all the way, starting at the point of capture and doing away with paper completely, opens the door to better scientific capacity. As I said, collecting information digitally can enable use of tools that can improve the way people analyze and visualize their fishery. Faster stock assessments and faster decisions. Smartphones can transmit information in near real time and provide that information to stock assessment scientists and managers to make those adaptive decisions. Easier community involvement, and this is really key, because in many areas around the world, government are failing to really fulfill the responsibilities needed to effectively manage fisheries at the scale that they're required to be managed at. And so involving the community in community fisheries management is really enabled by smartphone applications that collect data, that can link them with platforms on the cloud that can visualize and analyze the data, and really start to democratize fishery information. More effective monitoring and enforcement. That's an obvious one. Better fishing. These data could be linked directly to online tools in real time that would enable fishermen to find target species more efficiently while avoiding bycatch species. And the key here is real time. By creating a data path that happens in real time, you're opening the door to these tools that can be used to really improve fishermen's performance in the moment. And then finally, what we all really care about, the holy grail of all this, is a bigger bottom line for fishermen. That is really the key here. How do we improve the benefits that fishermen get from the use of technology? And electronic reporting is the first step to getting to a future where all these other technologies that I'll talk about next are feasible. So we aim to scale. We don't think about pilot projects as standalone pilot projects. All of our projects are really focused on how do we go from this project, demonstrating value of a technology, and taking it to the national level. And so we're working closely with government partners and our country teams to do this. we found a partner that charges relatively little for the use of these applications, and they update the applications and provide support. And they provide an app that works, as well as fishery analytics tools such as these. The app is customizable by the user, so we can apply it to a new fishery with almost no notice, and that's key. Being flexible and being able to pivot from one fishery to another with the same tool is really a key to achieving scale, we believe. For example, in Chile, we're working to help implement a community-focused fishery management plan for an important small-scale fishery. And we're doing this in Peru and Belize and Indonesia as well. But the big barrier here is the cost. How do we pay for it? How do we pay for this technology? Even though the cost of this smartphone application is very low, we're still facing challenges around who pays for it. And this is a common theme among many of our projects, especially when strong policies are lacking and in small-scale fishery situations. Another proof point that we're working on is called SmartPass. And the biggest gap in United States fishery monitoring is recreational fisheries. In many fisheries, recreational fishermen catch more than commercial fishermen, but we don't really have a good idea of the extent of that. So we've been working in Oregon for the last 2 years to implement a project called SmartPass, which is basically cameras situated at a coastal pass, a port, or a river mouth, a pinch point, a video review platform pictured on the slide to assist with video review and AI training, and artificial intelligence to classify types of vessels, for example, to tell the difference between a recreational boat and a commercial boat, and then count the number of boats that are going through this pass and measuring effort. The main prize, though, and we're focused on scaling this system across the US in recreational fisheries, but the main prize is that fisheries all over the world lack good information on total catch and total effort. And this is particularly true in small-scale fisheries. Small-scale fisheries rely on data-poor metrics of performance, such as length structure and so on. We believe that there's both a need to change the paradigm around this, but also an opportunity to do this. So how are we doing this? Well, in Lampung province in Indonesia, there's a really important blue swimming crab fishery. And we were looking at this fishery and examining the characteristics of it. And we realized that about 99% of the fishing effort in this fishery comes out of just 5 coastal rivers. And 2 of them are blown up on the slide here. And so we thought that this would be a perfect opportunity to kind of try and start shifting this paradigm around small-scale fishery monitoring. And so this year we are installing 3 systems to capture about 2/3 of the fishing effort in this important blue swimming crab fishery. We are also using an electronic reporting smartphone application. And by combining these things, by combining an estimate of catch per vessel and catch characteristics per vessel, combining that with the number of vessels actually fishing, then you can reliably generate, or at least scientifically generate, a good estimate of total catch, total effort in the fishery. And that's something that has never been thought possible before. So this is a really exciting technology. I'll show you the video here. And so the video here illustrates the camera view in a proof of concept that we did a couple years ago and what the detection algorithm is tracking. The harbor mouth is at the right of the picture at the end of the breakwater, and vessels, as they're going from left to right on the screen, are exiting. So each one of these vessels is being counted by the algorithm. This is as the sun is coming up. And so how do we move small-scale fisheries from data poor to data moderate? What are the benefits of doing that? Well, that's something that we're trying to figure out, right? Because most of the benefits revolve around reducing uncertainty in management measures, which arise from better stock assessments, perhaps, that have that have tighter confidence bounds around estimates of stock status. But also, we think that avoidance of catastrophic events, such as maybe this is a bad example, but in the Bering Sea lately, the entire crab fishery was completely closed for a season because we didn't really have a good idea of what was happening um, in the ecosystem. But things like that, where we can at least avoid these big stock collapses that really have these widespread impacts, could be a potential benefit. And then lastly, what are the impacts on the water for doing this? What are the impacts from the fisherman's perspective? Well, we believe that there's many benefits to improving the way we manage fisheries, but they're very difficult to communicate and to hold in your hand. They're kind of intangible because they take a long time to accrue. And by improving the stock status, you're improving fishermen's livelihoods, but it's very difficult to kind of show that. Oop. Um, Another proof point is safety at sea. So one of the ways that we are directly improving climate resilience is by trying to improve fish's safety at sea. And thanks to climate change, traditional systems for forecasting things like tropical storms and other adverse weather events are weakening. Maybe 100 years ago, fishermen would have a pretty good idea of when a storm is coming, but because all of the systems are changing, we don't really have a good idea of anymore of when that's happening. So by providing inexpensive connectivity while at sea, so fishers can be alerted to weather forecasts, as well as an SOS button and capsize sensor, we're trying to improve safety at sea, especially in small-scale fisheries. And then the tracking data collected through this VMS unit could eventually be used for other things. So these units that are pictured, they install with 2 screws, and that's it. You just kind of go along on your merry way and use the thing. It connects via Bluetooth to a smartphone app. They cost about $400 right now, and airtime is about $5 a month. It seems inexpensive, but again, we're facing a challenge around how do we pay for these things? How do we get fishermen to be able to afford these? And how do we get these into the hands of the many to really make broad scale change? So these are some examples of proof points that we're working on. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about a new opportunity that's coming up around using fishing vessels as platforms of opportunity. And so we know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the bottom of the ocean. And that is a really compelling fact. And it makes me think, how can we really improve our understanding of the ocean? We know a lot about the surface of the ocean through remote sensing. There's hundreds of satellites all over the place that are sending back temperature data and stuff like that. But we know almost nothing about what's happening underneath. And if you think about that at scale, it's a really incredible data gap that we're facing. And so we see fishing vessels as key platforms of opportunity. In effect, when fishing vessels go out, most fishing vessels, they perform a depth sounder operation where they put fishing gear down to some depth and they bring it back up. And so you could potentially use fishing vessels to collect very high quality information attached to fishing gear. And then what can this additional information be used for? Well, a few things that we're thinking about is improved hurricane forecasting and improved tropical storm forecasting. A lot of the dynamics of what happens underneath the water really impacts the path and the strength and the development of a hurricane as it nears land. We don't really have good information on what's happening under the water in a lot of these areas. Better fishing and predictive dynamic maps. There's a few of these initiatives happening around the world, and fishermen are demanding this information. They want to see what the temperature is at the bottom. They want to see how their catch rates relate to these ocean variables. The climate warning systems. I'm sure many of you have heard about SAPO in the Humboldt Current, which is trying to improve the system for providing warning about stock impacts in relation to climate change. We could improve that system by improving the data that goes into that. And that's just the benefits directly for fishermen. There is a ton of value for other industries in the blue economy. And so how do we transfer this data to other industries? How do we monetize that data? that is a very exciting avenue coming up. And I'll stop there. But thank you very much for the opportunity.